Tony on yet?
Yeah, Tony's there. He's the one with the beard.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right,
Hi,
I just got the live stream going.
We're just talking about that before we start the meeting. Conversation on whether or not we should go back to town hall for some of these meetings or for all of these meetings with a hybrid. Any thoughts on that?
We could chat about it tomorrow or something. It's not on the agenda tonight. We are closely watching what the legislature does as far as long-term rules on open meeting law. So we may be forced back into only on-person meetings. But I can tell you, hybrid is really only technically doable in the conference rooms downstairs. It's really not doable upstairs in the main hall.
Okay, I'm not looking to create work. I'm just trying to answer some questions.
Yeah, certainly when we meet, if we meet in the upstairs in the main hall, we can live stream the meetings, but people can't participate remotely like you could downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've been assuming that it's more convenient for us to do Zoom so they can, log on when they want to and, be at home and eating their dinner or whatever and listen to the parts they want and ask the questions during citizens forum of driving up to town hall. But I'm definitely open to anything.
And with the advent of winter, it might be a lot easier just to stay at home. Anyhow, let's open up. Welcome everybody to the December 7th Town of Nahant Board of Selectmen meeting at 6:30 p.m. We'll have a meeting opening, COVID update. Do we have that, Tony?
Yeah, we have our public health nurses on the call. We got all three of our team members here with Deb, Anna, and Kristen. So I will let them take the lead.
Okay, I'll start, if that's okay. Anna and Kristen.
There's a friendly face.
So what I'm going to do is just give an update on the COVID statistics. And, what's interesting right now is that a lot of people in town have COVID, but most of the people are doing home tests. So as you know, the only tests that come through the Department of Public Health are the PCR tests. However, we still have had a fair amount of PCR tests come in on the monthly basis. In November, we had 16. In October, we had 20. Those are just the PCRs. But what I did today is I put together the statistics for the 2020 to where we are today, because we had our first case of COVID in March of 2020. So it's almost 3 years, right? So for 2020, and remember, those were all PCR tests. There were no home tests, and people couldn't even get tested. It was so difficult for some people to get tested, right? It was mostly the healthcare workers and the first responders. So for that year, we had 149 cases. In 2021, we had 291 cases. Now, you would think in 2022, with the advent of the vaccines, and we had wonderful vaccination rates, we still do, that our numbers would maybe have gone down, when in fact, last January, we had the highest number of any. We had 157 cases in 1 month. So our total right now for the month of, for the year of 2022, which brings us up to just today, we still have more for December. We have, for this year, 420 cases. And that takes into account that so many of these home tests we don't even know about. Sometimes people will call us, but oftentimes they don't call us anymore. The other thing is we are getting reports of how many people per community are getting tested. So in the last 2 weeks in Nahant, we had 100 people, 100 residents get PCR tested. Out of that 100, 12 of those cases were positive. So the state rate right now for positivity is 7%. And over the last few months, we have been able to, our numbers have been higher than that of the state. So I have been bragging for the last 3 years that I never got COVID. I did all the clinics. I got all my vaccinations, and lo and behold, I got COVID last week. And why did I get COVID after all this time? I think it's because I felt so safe because I'm fully vaccinated with the flu vaccine and all the COVID boosters that I started to take off my mask everywhere I went for the first time, really. So here I am on day 6, my first day out of isolation today. But I can tell you it's still pretty rampant here and across the state. So I'm going to let Anna take over and talk about what the town's going to be doing very shortly.
Hello, everyone. So next Wednesday night on December 14th from 4 to 6 p.m., we'll be holding a bivalent booster clinic at Town Hall. We'll be offering the Moderna bivalent booster with the help of Lynn's public health department as well, and our public health nurses. There are plenty of appointments left if people want to sign up. That's located on the town website, or you can email any of us and we can get you that sign up info. And that's from 4 to 6 p.m.
And then
Anna, does that,
I'm sorry, what, Tony?
I was just going to ask, does it matter what type of vaccine you got previously, or how long ago you got your previous shot?
So it doesn't matter what vaccine you got previously. It is okay to mix and match the types of vaccines. And you want to be about 6 months past your last booster before you get the next one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If anyone's having trouble registering online, you can stop at the town hall or call the main number, and any of the staff at the town hall will be happy to help register you through the website.
Yep. And I'm available by email and phone as well for help with registering or any questions about the clinic.
And on that note, I would just like to take a minute to say that this is going to be my last hurrah for the town of Nahant. So I will be at the clinic. Anna is going to be running this clinic. She's going to take over. She's going to set it up. And Kristen and I will be, well, Kristen will be in Florida, but I'll be there with Anna. And Anna has the cell phone now for the public health contact for Nahant. And I'm sure Anna and Kristen, I feel very comfortable. You're in great hands. They've done a great job helping over the last year and a half. And I think the time has come. Actually, Anna, I was your school nurse, so I think it's time
Full circle.
to pass the baton.
I have big shoes to fill.
Deb, thank you so much for all you do for us. And Anna, you've got a tough role to fill.
I do. I look forward to keeping up with everything Deb did for you guys in the future.
I'm sure you will. Okay, thank you. Opening comments. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deb, and welcome, Anna. I know you've been on for a while, and Kristen, and good luck. And we're lucky to have you, and we were fortunate to have you spend several months under Deb's tutelage. So look forward to working with you.
Tony, did you have something you wanted to add?
I was just adding a thank you to Deb for all the work that she did, and what has done for many years, and then obviously a much more intense atmosphere over the last couple of years. Certainly was something that none of us saw coming, and it was a lot to learn and a very quick turnaround, and it was a lot of demand and many hours that Deb dedicated to helping out the residents of the town. And I've given this thank you speech to Deb, and I'll give it 10 more times without any complaint, because I was in those meetings with Deb early morning, late at night, every single day, nonstop. It was between communicating with the residents, between jumping on regional calls with the state and figuring out what the next protocol was. There's a lot to handle, and she did a great job. So thank you, Deb.
Yeah, thanks again, Deb. Definitely going out on a high note. And Anna and Kristen, in all likelihood, your job's going to be easier than what Deb's been through over the last few years. So,
So,
Hopefully.
kind of ironic, Deb, that you and Dr. Fauci are retiring at the same time.
Right. I didn't want to say that. Oh, gosh. Well, they know I'm always here too, if they ever need anything. I'm not leaving town. So probably be on the golf course, hopefully.
Good. Thanks again.
You're all welcome. It was really something, when you look back of how far we've come and how our behaviors, how we were really prisoners in our homes for so long, and all the unknowns, and we think we know a lot more now, and hopefully we'll, this will trend down and it will be treated like the flu before long, but we just never know what's out there. Time will tell, I guess.
Thank you. Hey, Tony, do we still have test kits?
Yes. Yep. There's a ton of test kits at the town hall.
Okay, Josh, you want to pick up on opening comments, please?
Yes, I can do that. We have several announcements here. The PTO Christmas tree sales at the Lowlands parking lot continue Thursday and Fridays from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturdays and Sundays from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. until December 18th or until the trees are all sold. The annual Christmas parade fundraiser is Saturday, December 10th. I think that's, yes, this coming Saturday at the Tides Restaurant starting at 6 p.m. The annual Christmas parade itself is Saturday, December 17th at 2022, starting at 6 p.m. from Cliff Street. The parade route can be found on the community calendar at nahant.org. Winter parking ban beginning December 21st through March 20th, 2022, from 12 a.m. midnight to 6 a.m. Visit the parking clerk page at nahant.org for more information. Nahant Town Hall holiday hours. The town hall will be closed on Monday, December 26th and Monday, January 2nd, 2023, in observance of Christmas and New Year's holidays. The annual Freezin' for a Reason Polar Plunge is on Saturday, January 1st, 2023, starting at 11 a.m. at Short Beach behind the Coast Guard Station. I think there's a way to register for that, as it is a fundraiser. I'm not sure what that is at the moment. I'm sure you can Google around for that. There is still a vacancy on the Conservation Commission. This is a very important commission, so please send any letters of interest to Kay Taylor at nahant.org, KTAYLOR at nahant.org. And that is the last of the announcements.
Thank you. Hey, before I forget it, and after we're speaking about the Christmas parade, just congratulations to everybody who dug in on the tree lighting. It really turned out to be a well-attended, spectacular event, and the lighting around town, particularly at the town hall, was the best I've seen it. And I think we can thank the DPW for an excellent job, police, fire, Raj Pulio, who always steps up and makes everything so great, and Gennaro, who dedicated his time and his people to put the lights up at the DPW. So Josh, I know you might want to say something about that.
Well, yeah, as you know, I was at the Christmas tree lighting with you, and it was really a beautiful scene. You know, Santa showed up and stood at the top of the stairs at Town Hall, and the kids were gathered all around, people singing, and it was really, I hadn't been in, I guess since my kids were little, and it really was, beautiful slice of Americana, I thought. So it was very cool.
Tony?
It was a great event. I loved it. My kids loved it. I think my son's still bouncing off the wall from all the hot chocolate and candy he had that night. But it's nice. A lot of the younger generation with young children were there, and we had Mary Miner and Sheila Hamilton and others from the Lions Club singing Christmas carols, and our fire department and police department helped bring Santa Claus to and from the event. So all in all, it was great weather and a great event. So yes, I echo the thank you that you just put out there to all those different departments, Mr. Chairman.
And Mark, I know you couldn't be there, but I know that you would have if you could have.
Yeah, I had a prior engagement, but I heard it went great. I know all my grandkids were up there, and they were talking about it to me the next day. So great. Thanks for everybody.
We missed you. We did miss you. Well, Mark, you want to take them new business motions?
Sure. With some surplus equipment to declare, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to declare the following as surplus equipment, and that they be placed on municipal bid auction per Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, procurement law: the 2005 Elgin sweeper, the 1972 portable 8-inch Navy pump, and the 1982 mounted generator trailer valued at $21,603.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
I just know that I've been away for a long time because I recognize all of this equipment from. I think I bought it, and so it's strange seeing it that it's actually that old. I know that old Navy pump that went through a lot of storms in this town, and also the generator too. Is that the generator that is the for the pump stations?
It's one of the, we have two
Right.
trailer yellow generators, and one of them is just not salvageable. The other, I think we pulled some parts from one to keep the other alive. So we sometimes use it at the pump station.
We all wish she had sometime in our lives.
Okay, roll call vote.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
When these go on municipal bid, is there a minimum bid? I'm thinking
I
about
think we
the
have the
generator,
option.
which is assigned a value. If the bid is not even close to that, what happens?
The value really dictates kind of the process by which I think you need to advertise the item that's being put up for sale. But we typically receive bids much lower, if anything at all. So there's a lot, sometimes we get no bids, on this type of equipment, but
My guess is sometimes you'd be happy to just get rid of this stuff.
yeah.
Gosh, you could use that generator up in New Hampshire.
Yep. I don't need electricity up there.
Yeah, I don't know if your neighbors would like it.
Yeah, and the sweeper, or obviously we're contracting that service out now, so we don't need that anymore. The pump, we have the two new pumps from 2020. I think similar size, but obviously those pumps work like champs. They're unbelievable. And we have a new generator. So that's part of the driver behind the auctioning of these items.
Okay, roll call vote.
Josh Antrim,
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty, aye.
We have some appointments to make. We have two volunteer appointments to the Emergency Management Department. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Kevin Phipps as a volunteer to the Nahant Emergency Management Department.
seconded.
Discussion, or do you want to take them both together?
We can do them separate.
Okay,
I don't know if Kevin is on. I see Chief Furlong's on. Kevin is a full-time firefighter, but lives in Nahant. I think he's a firefighter in
Lynn.
Lynn, and he heads up a lot of the emergency management tasks for the fire department there. So a great experience and asset for the town to have him join our team. Chief, do you want to add anything to that?
No, you took the words out of my mouth. I just have a little background on the next candidate. So
and before we move on, could you just give a quick summary of the role the Nahant Emergency Management Program plays in the department?
the employees, is that what you said, Gene?
Yeah,
Yeah, so they're volunteers. They help behind the scenes greatly preparing for major events, storms, social gatherings. They're all volunteers and they do immense work behind the scene. I can't say enough of the team.
is the training program involved with that?
Yeah, so most of the people that come on already have a lot of training and experience behind them, so we don't really have to do that. But if we find somebody that needs training, we'll absolutely give them training. Most of it is free training through FEMA and MEMA.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
We had a second.
Yep.
Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim,
Mark Cullen and
Gene Canty, aye.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Maeve Dubell as a volunteer to the Nahant Emergency Management Department.
seconded.
Discussion?
If I may, Maeve came strongly recommended by Mike Halley, who's on emergency management as well. She has a master's in criminology and criminal justice, a bachelor's in criminal justice, criminology, and psychology. She's currently the assistant director of Merrimack College Police Academy. She has family that lives in town, so he has a vested interest in helping us out and moving us forward.
Oh, excellent. Any further discussion?
Well, thank you, Chief, for finding these two individuals. They both seem very qualified and will contribute immensely to our town. So thank you.
I wish I could take the credit, but Mike Halley is the driving force behind that, and I would never hear the end of it.
Yeah, and thanks to Mike and Carl and Dennis for work they do with the emergency management.
Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim,
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty, aye.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay,
If
we
I
have-
go, so vote to, you want to take that one?
Sure. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to accept the only bid it received for the disposal of that part of 6 Antigua Way, Nahant, Mass, that rests upon the discontinued portion of Antigua Way that we declared available for deposition on October 19th, 2022.
seconded.
Discussion. Roll call vote.
Well, maybe just for the audience, we can provide a little background. So this is Cardilli's property on Antigua Way. There was, I guess, some accidental encroachment on town land annual town meeting, we voted to allow the town to sell that land. And the car dealers put in a bid, and we are voting on accepting that bid.
It's 192 square feet. It went through, as Selectman Andrew mentioned, it went through town meeting process. It went through town and land study committee. The board of selectmen voted to put it up for sale and accept bids on it. The bid we received was for $2,500. It is less than what the market rate per square foot would typically be on property in this area based on the appraisal that was conducted. However, it's essentially 192 square feet. It's the flower box that is front steps essentially. So it's the market rate, is a little bit more general. So I recommend that we accept this. I don't think there's anyone else. It doesn't change anything that has been in place since the Cardillians have owned the property. It doesn't encroach into the actual street. It encroaches on paper where the street is mapped. So it's not really a hardship on the town anyway.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
So let's see, next motion, to authorize the town administrator to sign a USDA agreement regarding coyotes. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town administrator to sign a cooperative agreement between the town of Nahant and the United States Department of Agriculture and the Wildlife Services.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
I can start us off. The Board of Selectmen, as the Board of Selectmen and as the Board of Public Health, has been following this issue very closely. We've had numerous cases in town of aggressive or habituated behavior by coyotes, to the point where it's met the definition of a problem animal or a habituated animal by Mass Wildlife standards. And Mass Wildlife has authorized the town to attempt to dispatch those animals. As a reminder to those on the call, when you are dealing with a problem or habituated animal, relocation is not an option. When I use the term dispatch, I mean take the animal, remove the animal, kill the animal. That's what happens when you have animals of this kind acting in a certain way. According to Mass Wildlife, we've had a few of those. We've had 3 cases in town where animals on leash have been taken by coyotes. We've had recent scenarios where residents walking their pets have been surrounded by coyotes in an aggressive stalking manner, and have not responded positively to hazing techniques or attempts to push coyotes away. So when the town of Nahant is provided that authorization to eliminate those problem animals, we're given a couple options that we've struggled with because of their limit of effectiveness and safeness. And those options are either attempt to trap a coyote with the only legal trap mechanism is a box cage trap, which I see Dave Waddles from Mass Wildlife is on the call too, so he can jump in. But we've had multiple forums or conversations with Dave and talked about these options, and essentially we've reached out to PACs problem animal control officers who are licensed by the state that can be hired by a community to attempt to dispatch the problem habituated animals. And really none of them engage in coyote attempt to dispatch because the trap is so ineffective. I think, as Mass Wildlife has stated before, over the last 10 years, only 3 coyotes have been successfully captured with that trap in the state of Massachusetts. So really an ineffective measure or tool to attempt to get rid of the problem animal. The other option is to shoot the animal with local or state law enforcement. Unfortunately, Massachusetts Environmental Police are pretty stretched thin, and the chances of getting them in town at the right time, in the right scenario, is very unlikely. Likewise, Nahant Police, who are local and available much more often, obviously, still a risky scenario and tough situation to put them in to attempt to shoot at a coyote. And there's very limited opportunities to have a safe, controlled environment to do something like that. So we've been struggling with, we know we have some problem animals in town. We've been given the authority to get rid of them, but the tools by which to do so, really aren't practical or effective or safe. So for a combination of those. So we've worked with Dave Waddles and Mass Wildlife for months now on what alternative option do we have today? And we've connected with the federal agency of USDA and their wildlife services. We will be the first town that will be hiring their services to help with coyote issues like this. And essentially they're experts in this field. Well, I want to pull up here. The wildlife services professionals have trained rifle experts on staff who also serve as instructors to train others. Wildlife services is an extremely professional and safe program, which uses the latest technologies available for carrying out a safe and effective wildlife operation. Equipment that will be used here includes night vision and thermal imaging scopes. For the most part, this program will be conducted in a controlled, isolated area. We'll see if we need to go beyond the controlled, isolated area, and we'll be bringing them in probably in the next couple of weeks. Should the board vote today to sign the agreement, we'll be bringing them in the next couple of weeks to really get the details ironed out. With the way that this works, and as Dave has mentioned in the past, we can't identify which coyotes are the problem or habituated coyotes. So what we'll do here is we'll attempt to dispatch coyotes through this mechanism, and then we'll see if the aggressive or nonchalant response behavior continues, and then we'll reassess. Dave, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I guess so if you don't know, my name's Dave Waddles. I am the black bear and fur bearer biologist with the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. While Nahant would be the first town to use wildlife services for kind of an urban coyote removal, they regularly do work throughout the state at airports and other facilities like that. They work at Logan Airport, Worcester Airport, the Air Force bases to deal with wildlife on the runway. So they are trained to work in very sensitive areas. And as Tony said, they're very, very highly trained with the use of firearms, as well as wildlife removal. So these are truly wildlife removal professionals, which is why they have an agreement with the State Department of Public Safety that allows them to operate in areas where otherwise only law enforcement would be able to. So they are truly trained professionals who are best equipped to safely and successfully perform this type of work.
So I want to make a couple things. I want to highlight a couple comments that I've thought about as we approach this vote. And, you know, I know there's a lot of folks online here and probably people streaming this at home. This is very much an action to deal with habituated and problem animals. This is not a reaction to a nuisance or a general dislike of coyotes. This is a response to animals that are comfortable and around human beings and not responding to the techniques that we've learned from mass wildlife. And even if USDA comes into town and is able to take a large amount of the coyotes, there's nothing that says coyotes couldn't walk across the causeway, you know, the next day. So us residents, pet owners, and have to stay vigilant and have to continue to follow the guidance that Mass Wildlife and the town has echoed on ways to avoid conflict and ways to respond to conflict. So, you know, not leaving food out, making sure your garbage is covered, not feeding wildlife, hazing coyotes whenever you see them, instilling a fear in them that they should have of human beings, even if you even if you don't feel like you are in harm's way, even if you're not walking a dog. If you see a coyote, you should be, you know, yelling at it, pushing at it, you know, getting it away from, getting it to be afraid of you and the next person that it might come encounter with.
Yeah, and the goal of all that is basically, you know, this plan is to remove those aggressive animals that pose a human health and safety threat. The continued diligence with securing and removing food sources, the continued diligence about actively hazing coyotes and protecting your pets is to ensure that those behaviors that you're seeing don't develop in the next coyotes that likely will at some point occupy Nahant. So you're trying to prevent these same issues from recurring. So it is important to maintain those behaviors moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple comments. I mean, it's largely overlapping with what Tony and Dave just said. But, well, first of all, thanks, Dave Waddles, for joining us, you know, taking time out of your evening to join the town of Nahant on this, you know, important topic. As Tony alluded to, even for problem animals as defined by the state regulations, there are very few methods that are legal and even remotely effective available to us. This effort with the USDA specialists took quite a bit of time and collaborative effort to put the plan in place. The USDA specialists studied Nahant via Google Maps and Google Earth, and then they came and visited Nahant. Two of their agents came and visited Nahant, toured the town with Police Chief Furlong and me. Tony was busy that day, so I substituted, and we toured the whole town, identifying locations where coyotes are commonly seen, coverage areas, locations where they could potentially perform this essentially execution. These are professional sharpshooters. As Tony said, they'll be operating at night. night vision goggles, ultraviolet cameras or goggles. Their firearms will be outfitted with silencers, so there'll be no disturbance to the public. And have come up with a plan that I think Chief Furlong is satisfied. I don't want to speak for the chief, but I would call it 100% safe. And these are, as Dave Waddles pointed out, these are trained professionals. It's literally what they do. They spend a lot of time on airports, keeping the runways clear of deer in particular, but also coyotes. And again, the only reason this is a legal option available is that coyotes, several coyotes in the case of Nahant, meet the definition of habituated or aggressive animals. If the coyote behavior was normal as defined by these guidelines, this would not be allowed. But because we have these habituated animals, this becomes a legal option. So my point there is that this doesn't mean you won't ever see a coyote. It doesn't mean the coyotes won't return to Nahant. What it does mean is that hopefully we can get rid of these habituated animals, and as the population returns, which it most likely will, because it's a statewide issue. We all need to do our part to establish humans as the alpha species and take every opportunity, like Tony said, to put some fear into these animals, and so that they will avoid humans going forward. This is a statewide issue. Nahant is not unique in this issue. We've all seen the news articles from multiple communities in the greater Boston area, Swampscott, Arlington, and I can go on, but it's anybody that's looking at this rationally understands that this is not unique to Nahant. There's a problem in the greater Boston area, and we've seen news articles from other states as well. My plea here is that people understand that, what our limitations are here is dealing with problem animals. It's not, as Tony mentioned, because they're a nuisance or we don't like seeing them. It's an attempt to eradicate habituated and aggressive animals. And that's the only thing that makes this a legal option within the state laws. If we think the state laws should change, you should reach out to your state senator and state representative asking for additional tools beyond the box crates. That is the only legal tool now. I know Tony's done that. I know I've done that. And I'd encourage all the citizens that want to see the population managed, let's say, more aggressively or efficiently, to do the same.
So we have, on that note, we're working on drafting some sort of legislation. When you have these problem animals or habituated animals, as I mentioned before, you can't relocate them to someone else's, to make them someone else's problem. You are eliminating them. And with humane leg hold traps, it would be a much safer option to eliminate them by trapping them first. Unfortunately, the only trap available to us is really not effective currently. So we're working on legislation, and hopefully going to be working with not just our state rep and senator, but other communities that have had similar issues, that are dense neighborhoods and urban and suburban neighborhoods, to see if they'll join us in this effort. Selectman Antrim mentioned some news reports from other towns, and I'll mention a few of those. In July, 2 people in Swampscott were bitten by a coyote in the same parking lot 3 weeks apart. In October, another Swampscott resident reported being surrounded by a group of coyotes while walking their dog. That's a similar scenario that we've recently been reported to the town of Nahant. That's happened in Nahant, and we've seen actual video footage of that. Around the same time in Hingham, a 10-year-old girl was reportedly chased by coyotes while walking her dog. In Arlington, 3 people, 2 of them toddlers, were attacked by coyotes in different incidents. In August of 21, a small child was attacked by a coyote on North Herring Cove Beach down the Cape. Those last incidents I'm talking about were folks that were not walking dogs at the time. So I mention those because this is very much a public safety concern of the boards and mine. And we're trying to prevent, this is somewhat of a reaction to, it is a reaction to previous behavior that's occurred in Nahant, but it's also an attempt to prevent anything worse or further action by those same animals.
Tony, I just want to say really quickly that all of those incidents that you mentioned in Swampscott, in Arlington, on the beach in Cape Cod, we can directly attribute to intentional feeding of coyotes by the public in those areas. And so I don't want to paint the picture here tonight and create a sense of overblown sense of fear in the public in terms of the risk of being bitten by a coyote. So, because they are going to be in your community moving forward. But again, that is the role that people can have in creating these sorts of incidents. Again, intentional feeding led to all of those bites. General bites are still relatively rare, but again, the behaviors that we've seen in Nahant do, in our opinion, constitute a public safety threat, and that's why these actions are being permitted to prevent a serious negative encounter from occurring.
If I could, thank you, David. If I could, just to make an important point, I think I wrote down a couple of items here while we were talking and discussing this. It's important to note that this is not a long-term plan. This is a stopgap measure, as I see it, to give us the opportunity to develop a solid plan to address these problems down the road. For now, it also gives us a little space. It'll hopefully stop any attacks or injuries from occurring. And I don't think that beyond that, there's much more to say about it, other than it is a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
I just want to add that, first of all, thank you, David, for joining us tonight. I know you must be extremely busy with everything I've been reading in the Globe and other publications and on the news. I'm not sure if you're married, have kids and stuff, but even if you don't, the time you're putting in, it must be incredible. And thank you for working with Tony and Chief Furlong and putting this together. I would like to say, before I vote, I would like, Tony, if we could listen to comments from our residents first.
Good idea.
Please.
Is there anyone that'd like to make a comment? If so, you can unmute yourself and comment.
Hello, this is Sandy Burton, 296 Nahant Road. I do appreciate your work on this and I fully support it. I was wondering how they're going to identify the problem coyotes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're not going to be able to identify, air quotes, the problem animal, Sandy. It's going to be, I guess the assumption would have to be that they're all problem animals. We can rationalize that to some degree by the fact that, there have been a couple instances reported where people have been surrounded by 7 coyotes. So you could say in that case, maybe we have 7 problem animals. That's my layman's interpretation of it, but obviously they're not identified as this coyote is the one that attacked this dog. So because that's indistinguishable, we have to treat them all as though they might be the problem animal.
And as Dave has mentioned in the past, when you can't identify the animal and you're authorized to attempt to dispatch problem animals, it almost becomes a process of elimination. So you take a few, and if no more behavior of that kind continues, then you can assume you got the right ones. If it does continue, then likely you have more problems to deal with.
Ira.
Francine?
Go ahead.
Hi.
Ted.
Hi, so you're talking about eliminating an entire pack, is that correct?
Remains
No.
to be seen.
So, all right, so Dave Waddles, can you speak to what the expectation, if you start removing members of a pack, how does that result in the behavior of the remaining members? I mean, if you take out the dominant pair, so now you're left with juveniles, isn't that going to just exacerbate the difficulties? Because now we've got young members without the guidance of the older members. Can you speak to that briefly?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, it can, you can't say necessarily either way how that's going to happen. It could be that it is the alpha members of that family group that are the aggressive ones. Removing them could cause the problems to go away. It's possible that it's some of the subordinate members of the pack that are as aggressive. As Tony was saying, as Josh was saying, unfortunately, that is the main difficulty here, is that we can't identify the individual that is doing this. And so this unfortunately is a case where, and I think it's pretty clear from all the discussions we've had in the past, that it is certainly not the policy of the Division of Fish and Wildlife to make any attempts to eradicate coyotes. But we are placing human health and safety above the coyotes in this instance. And if we have to remove a number of coyotes from the hunt in order to achieve that and protect human health and safety, then that is the position that we are going to take. It is very unlikely that you are going to eliminate coyotes from the hunt. They are extremely resilient in terms of their ability to rebound when any attempts are made to do that. It's happened over and over again across the country historically. So it's not an instance of where there's an attempt here to eradicate coyotes. It is really trying to remove those individuals that are being aggressive towards people.
And one last part, I mean, just to, if these actions are taken, then Tony, to do the best with, if these actions are taken, and then I'm wondering if we should take this a step further. And therefore, if anybody is found feeding the coyotes or causing this habituation, there should be fines put in place or some sort of action that should be taken so that we're not, and the coyotes are not all paying the penalty for people's bad behavior. Is that something that has been even thought about yet?
We've obviously, pushed that rhetoric. We've been pushing that in all of our public meetings, in our on our website and in our mailer that we've sent out. In every conversation, we talk about the importance of that. In conversation with the state delegation and MSPCA about potential future legislation, one of the things they brought up was, does the town have a local bylaw about, regarding penalties and fines for feeding the wildlife? So it's and we don't. I don't believe we do, unless Dan, you can correct me. I don't think we do. So
I don't think, I'll take a look tonight, but I don't think so.
So it's something that we are, considering for the upcoming town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say that is something that we can assist with. We have helped other towns. In other instances, quite often it's related to bears, but to help towns draft bylaws that are effective for actually preventing habituation of wildlife. So we have those in place and would be happy to work with the town if that's the town's desire.
Thank you, Dave.
As a member of the Board of Health, Francine, I would entertain such a bylaw, even a regulation. Does it need to be a bylaw? Can it be a regulation on the Board of Health?
No, this would be a bylaw. If we're going to start to enforce it against folks, it would be a bylaw.
I think once you, if you're gonna add like a fine structure to it, I think it needs to be a bylaw.
Okay, I'd certainly be willing to entertain that.
Any
Francine, I
further
saw in
discussion?
the, Francine, I also saw in the chat that you had asked a question about, you know, can we be sure about the reports that have come in that they are factual, or is it just, you know, so we have, obviously there's a lot of communication that happens on social media. When we see that sort of stuff, our animal control officer will attempt to reach out to people who have made those reports, and we'll fill out a report related to that. So, you know, we believe that the reports that we're getting directly to our animal control officer are truthful. But if there has been situations, and most recently there's been situations where we've actually had seen camera footage of stalking, you know, ring camera footage of stalking, you know, people walking their dog.
Thanks, Tony. I just, one last little point, you know, nobody wants to see anybody get hurt, whether it's a person, someone's pet, none of that. But the other side of this is, whether you love coyotes or you hate them, they have strong family structures. There's a whole existence in a coyote family pack. And so just taking out pack members, or just, you know, it's a big deal. And it shouldn't be taken lightly. None of this is all very important. So you know, even for the coyote haters out there, I know I have a reputation to being a coyote lover. I care about all life, period. But, you know, we need to consider what we're doing here and the impact it's having, not only on the people, but on the coyote family as well. Now, that's all. I just want to put that in people's awareness. Okay. Thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Francine. You know, one thing I can assure you is this is not a decision or a point that we came to lightly. It's you know, it's something we've been wrestling with obviously for months. And it's a tough decision. It was a tough decision to get here. You know, we understand all the points that you made. We understand that some stuff is rumor, and we have to sort that out. I can say that I've spoken to some people firsthand that I know and trust and know to be level-headed, and have become convinced that, you know, we truly do have overly habituated / aggressive animals amongst us. And yeah, it's not an easy decision. And the plan took, you know, it took 7 weeks from the time the USDA guys first came to Nahant to go through the process. They had to seek approval from the state, write up contracts. It was a long process, and you know, it's certainly not something we're rushing into. You know, we've had those 7 weeks to think about, do we really want to do this? You know, what are the long-term implications? Yeah, tough choice. And I you know, I don't know how many people will absorb our words here, but you know, this does not mean the coyotes won't be back. They will be back. Many of us have probably seen the Facebook video of the 3 coyotes heading from the rotary down the causeway, and 5 minutes later they're at the tides. So the notion that Nahant presents some kind of a barrier to the coyotes is false. That is not true. There's coyotes in, as Dave Waddles has told us, in every single community in Massachusetts, with the exception of those on Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket. They're even on the Elizabeth Islands, which there's no causeway. There's not even any ferries, except Cuttyhunk. But those are islands, so the only way to get there is Very resilient animals. They'll be back. Seeing animals on your Ring doorbell walking down the street at 3 a.m. is not abnormal. That's what we're going to have to expect in the future. What we're hoping is in the future, we can avoid the situation where coyotes are approaching a pet that's on a leash or surrounding a person and not being frightened off when hazed. That's what we are hoping this effort will result in, but it will not result in the eradication of coyotes in Nahant long term. I just want to
Thank you,
be
Josh.
frank with everybody about that.
What is important here is that we take that opportunity, this stopgap measure, this open time that we'll have between now and when they start to migrate back to the town. But it's a lot more, there's a lot more work ahead for us in town to develop a solid long-range plan. And that's what I think is tantamount to making this thing work. Anyone else?
Any other last words, Dave Waddles? Mr. Glissom?
Okay, roll call vote.
Josh Antrim,
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty, aye. Preserving East Point.
I can provide a quick update here. The eminent nothing's changed since the last meeting, but for those that didn't catch that, the eminent domain case continues on. The discovery phase has been, let's say, extended calendar wise. Recently, Northeastern had asked for depositions from many people, more than a couple dozen people, I think. And 2 weeks back, the judge ruled that they could get depositions from approximately 5 people. Those depositions haven't happened yet. So we're still in the discovery phase, and that's sort of stretching out calendar wise. With regards to the Article 97 case, as I mentioned last time, there's sort of 2 prongs to that case, and that's the let's say statement that Northeastern dedicated, officially, legally, bindingly dedicated the undeveloped areas that they own at East Point as conservation land. The judge ruled on October 31st that he did not find evidence that they made that dedication. The second prong that has been appealed, by the way, but the second prong of that case is the what's so-called promissory estoppel parallel path, let's say, and that is that Northeastern said they were dedicating it to I'm describing this in layman's terms, but said they were dedicating that land as conservation land. And so that was the assumption. And for example, the town of Nahant invested in Lodge Park on the assumption that that area would remain as conservation space, not covered with a large building and a few acres of parking lot. So Northeastern has filed a motion for summary judgment on that, which means in layman's terms, hey, judge, we would like you to just dismiss this or not, dismiss this claim or not without being heard. And so yesterday our lawyers submitted their response to that. Thought it was a pretty good document that was submitted, and there is a hearing on that January 18th. That's all I had on the legal proceedings.
Just in terms of on the subject preserving East Point, I had the opportunity last night to I know you were there, Josh and Tony, for the Open Space Committee, and their presentation on, sort of a plan for East Point and Lodge Park area. So it was very impressive. I thought a lot of good came out of that, and I look forward to trying to, get some funding to put some of their ideas into place at this town meeting. So I want to thank the Open Space Committee for putting that together. Very well done.
Yeah.
Okay, town administrators report.
So I wanted to provide an overview of the lowland stormwater study. Dubois and King, the firm that we hired with funding from a previous town meeting warrant article, was tasked with taking a look at the lowlands neighborhood and ways to improve our stormwater removal systems in that area. We have a few different alternatives that they looked at. After doing some survey work, looking at engaging with state regulators, engaging with natural heritage and endangered species, looking at different grant programs, and then really kind of getting out to the neighborhood and doing different surveys and essentially modeling different types of flood scenarios and what type of stormwater improvements infrastructure that is that we could look into to help improve our dewatering system or procedures when we do have a flood scenario in that neighborhood. The results of that study are on nahant.org under the DPW. I've forwarded that link to the email chain that I have for residents in the lowlands neighborhood and ask them to take a look at it and review it. And we will be hosting with Dubois, with the folks from Dubois and King, we'll be hosting a neighborhood meeting next week. It's either going to be next week or early the week after. I've got some response from the neighborhood about which days they prefer to host that meeting. But I'm also working with the other, events that are happening in town, like the Wednesday night COVID booster clinic, Tuesday night CPC meeting, and things of that nature. So still trying to figure out when we're going to host that neighborhood meeting. But that's our next step, is really kind of have the consultants walk the neighborhood through their report and findings. And then all of us, in a collective effort will be, working to tick off some of those recommendations. Essentially, the 5 different recommendations or alternatives that they looked at was the outfall pipe at Castle Road that goes out towards Doggy Beach, and repairing that. The underground stormwater system of catch basins on Castle Road and Fox Hill Road, the condition and potential need for improvement. The ditch system that goes from Ward Road all the way to Bear Pond, the outfall system, gravity and force pump at Bear Pond, and lastly, creating new emergency infrastructure that would help us locate to install an emergency pump, creating a basin in the neighborhood to basically discharge water from. And all of the results really scored similar. So a lot of those alternatives are going to provide similar value, and a lot of them kind of tie into one another. So our next step, like I mentioned, is to really meet with the neighborhood, explain to them the results of that study, and then we already have $550,000 authorized from a previous town meeting that we can put towards, the beginning stages of design and construction to one or two of those recommendations. I also have Vicky Masson, myself and Amy Rutledge from DuBois and King met the other day, and we will be, we're submitting, Vicky on behalf of the town is submitting a statement of interest to the next round of BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure funding program that we're gonna tie into some of the recommendations from the study. So any questions, comments?
No, as you know, I've talked to you about this, Tony, and I've read the report. I don't disagree with any of the findings or the priorities or ratings. So looks like we have a lot of the funding already in place to implement most, if not all of this. So hopefully we can get on top of this quickly.
Any further questions? Anybody out there want to just bring a question up on the lowlands area? Is there anybody in the audience? We're going into citizens forum. Do we have anybody on citizens forum?
If anyone wants to unmute or raise their hand.
Hello,
that's time to do so.
this is Sandy Burton, 296 Nahant Road. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place to ask this question, but is there a timetable for the Coast Guard housing demolition and site development?
No, there's I wouldn't say there's really a hard timeline at this time. We're still working through the legal process of having tenants vacate the housing in that area. So that's been our main focus at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any citizens hanging out there? Is anybody there?
Doesn't look like it, Gene.
Nothing in the chat, Tony.
No.
No, we just blinked out there for a minute. Okay, so we'll move on to the executive session.
Yeah, before we adjourn, I move that pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Paragraph A, subsection 3, the Board of Selectmen vote to enter into executive session to discuss pending litigation strategy for the town of Nahant versus 7 Coast Guard housing tenants, and the Board of Selectmen will not return to open session.
Seconded.
Mr. Chair, before you go ahead in that one, just declare, if you deem appropriate, that this particular meeting in open session would have a detrimental effect on a negotiating position of this litigation. Declare that, that's all.
Declare it.
Yeah, let me ask you this. This will take care of it. Do you believe that if we would have this discussion in open session, that we're about to have an executive session, that it would have a detrimental effect on our settlement position, our negotiating position regarding these litigations?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, roll call vote.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Not gonna lie.
Gene Canty, aye.
Good night, everyone.
See you in a few.